Okay, so today we're going to be solving literal equations. Literal equations just means rearranging for a different variable. So for example, in science, you've dealt with force equals mass times acceleration. It's solved for F, because F is by itself. So now all we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, solve for A instead. So you're going to have to figure out how to get A by itself by still doing everything you remember from equations, but you're going to try and isolate A and leave it the F and M on the other side. So let's take some quick notes. You guys can skip this and move on to the one-step problems. So these are all one-step problems, which means we're going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So it's going to say solve for W. So I know I'm solving for W. Why is this not working? Okay, solve for W. So here is my W. I'll kind of circle it. So the reason W is not by itself is because there is that L next to it. And we know from equations that if you have two things right beside each other with no operation sign, then it's multiplication. So right now they are multiplying L times W. The opposite of multiplying is division. So what I'm going to do is divide both sides by what's attached to the W, which is the L. Okay? So in that case, I know two L's will cancel each other out, and I'm left with A divided by L equals W. Okay, so I'm done. I've solved for W. W is isolated and by itself, and the equation is in terms of W. Okay, so number 2, it says solve for H. So let me kind of circle H. Okay, I need to get H by itself, but the reason it's not by itself is because it's next to the B. I know they are multiplying that B, so I'm going to divide both sides by B. B divided by B cancels out, and I'm left with A divided by B equals H. I'm done because I've got H on one side by itself, and if you wanted to write H equals A over B, both of those answers are totally fine. Okay? So I want you to try 3, 4, 5, and 6 all by yourself. Okay? So press pause and try those 3. Here's what I got for number 3. I divided by R to get T by itself and got D over R equals T. On number 4, even though you have 3 letters right beside each other, they're all multiplying. So in one step, you can get rid of the P and the R. So I divided by PR, and then rewrote this. Same thing on number 5. You can divide by L and W at the same time and get V over L, or V divided by L over W equals H. Same thing with 2, it's just the number. Same thing, divide by 2 and pi to get R by itself, and then rewrite those problems. Okay? So on number 7, it says M equals C minus. We can go ahead and change that to an 8 because that's really hard to read. So it says solve for C. There is C. The reason it's not by itself is because they're subtracting 8 on both sides. So I'm going to add 8 on both sides. 8s are going to cancel. How you would read this is M plus 8, and that's exactly how you write it, all on one line. And you're done. M plus 8 equals C. Okay, number 8 is another division problem, solve for pi. So I need to get rid of R squared. So I'm going to divide by R squared. And I would get A over R squared equals pi. Okay. Now, multiplication problems are tricky because they look like fractions. Just like equations, you always have to multiply by what's in the denominator or on bottom. So you're going to times by V on both sides. Okay? So I know my V's are going to cancel, and you can write this as VD or DV, either one of those is fine, equals M. And you're done. Okay? So anytime there is a number on bottom or in the denominator, you do have to multiply by it first to cancel those 2 out, and then multiply on the same side. Okay? So those are all examples of one-step problems. We're now going to move on to some trickier problems. They are two-step and multi-step. So on the back page, we're going to do some two-step problems. Think backwards through PEMDAS, and then remove all fractions by multiplying by the reciprocal. And I will actually always do that first because I hate fractions as well. And then the last step is usually to divide what's next to the variable. So let's try these out. Number 10 and 11 both have fractions. So I need to get rid of the fraction first because that's going to be the easiest. And so since this is 1/2, the reciprocal of 1/2 is going to be a 2. So I'm going to times by 2 on both sides to get rid of that fraction. So now my fraction in that 2 will go away, and I'm left with 2a equals bh. Okay? Solving for h, so I need to get rid of b by dividing by b, and I would just get 2a over b equals h. Okay? So get rid of that fraction first by multiplying by what's on bottom, and then solve it like you did on the front. So why don't you try number 11? Press pause. So I got v over 3 equals h equals b. So I times by 3 first to get rid of that fraction. Then I got 3v equals big B h, and then I divided by h to get big B by itself and got that answer. Okay? On number 12, I need to multiply by what's on bottom always to get rid of it. So I'm going to times by 2 on both sides. If you do it to the right side, you have to do it to the left side. Your 2's will cancel. You're left with 2k equals mv squared. So now it looks like a one-step problem. You need to solve for m. So I need to divide by v squared and get 2k over v squared equals m. Okay? So why don't you try number 13? It just looks just like number 12. Press pause. 13, I got dA minus c equals b. You could have also had AD minus c equals b. So first off, you had to multiply by d on the right side and on the left side. So that's how I got dA, because I don't really need to write d times a. And then I brought down equal sign, and I brought down what was on the top in the numerator. Since I'm solving for b, I had to subtract c on both sides. And then I read this as dA minus c, and that's how you write it all together on one line. Okay? Alright, let's try number 14 together, and then I'll let you try 15, 16, and 17 on your own. So I'm solving for w. Okay? Notice that there is a 2 next to the w, as well as this 2l. So I have to get rid of this 2l before I can handle what's right next to your variable. So the opposite of a 2l is going to be a minus 2l. So I have to minus 2l on both sides. So then I would read that p minus 2l. So that's how I'm going to write it all on one line. Equals 2w. Okay? Solving for w, so now I can divide by 2. And I would get p over 2l over 2 equals w. Okay? So 15, 16, and 17 are all like that problem where you have to subtract something before you divide. So why don't you try 15, 16, and 17? Press pause. On number 15, the first thing I did was subtract ax because they were adding it. So I subtracted ax on the right. I rewrote that as c minus ax. I brought down the by. Since I'm solving for y, I had to divide by b on both sides. Make sure you divide everything on that side by b, and that's how I got 15. On number 16, I'm solving for x, so I can't get rid of that m yet until I subtract this b. And I got y minus b equals mx, and then I could divide by m in my last step. Over here, I'm solving for t, and I can't get rid of this PR yet until I subtract P.
Susie Beeler, call the main office. Susie, call the main office.
Announcements. Then I subtract P on both sides, and I would get A minus P equals PRT, and then that's why I divided by P and R to get T by itself, and then that's how I got my final answer. Alright, on 18 there are two different ways to solve this problem, and I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you the distributive property way first. So when you see this problem, let's go ahead and make that an 8. Distribute. So n times a is NA. N times 1 is plus n. Bring down equals 8. Okay, I'm solving for a, so I have to get rid of this n by subtracting n. I would get 8 minus n equals NA. Still solving for a, so I need to divide by n and divide by n. So I would get 8 minus n over n equals a. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that problem again. So right off the bat, if this was your problem, since they're multiplying n and then a plus 1, you can actually divide by n right off the bat and get 8n over n equals a plus 1, and then you could minus 1 on both sides. So you could have 8 over n minus 1 equals a. So that's another way of writing that problem. How they got that was, we know that n divided by n is just a 1, so they kind of rewrote that out to the side. So either way you would want to do that problem would be correct. Alright, 19 and 20 are the hardest problems by far. These are be bonus, for example, on a quiz. But first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this fraction. So since they're dividing by 9, I'm going to times by 9 on both sides to just get rid of that fraction immediately. So then I would have 9c equals 5 parentheses f minus 32. Okay, so like I said, you could do the problem how I did over here and distribute, or you could divide by 5 right off the bat. It's up to you. I'm actually going to divide by 5 just because I don't have a calculator right next to me. And that would be 9c over 5 equals f minus 32. And then the last step would be to plus 32 on both sides. And so how we would write that would be 9c over 5 plus 32 equals f. Okay, if we distributed, we would have gotten, let me see, 9c equals 5f minus 160, I believe. Then I would have to plus 160. So 9c plus 160 equals 5f, and then divide by 5. So either one of these answers would be right for that problem. Okay? Let me move all this over here. Nope. All right, on 20, I'm going to get rid of that fraction first by timesing by 2, timesing by 2. So I would get 2a equals h parentheses b1 plus b2. Same thing, I can either divide by h or distribute it. I'm going to divide by h and get 2a over h equals b1 plus b2. And since I'm solving for b1, I'm going to subtract b2. So 2a over h minus b2 equals b1. Okay? So I ran out of time on that video, so I had to talk really quick. But that's literal equations, and so you can practice on a worksheet, or you can do IXL I8. Thanks for watching.